I think the way I answer that question, I always answer that question, is this way. Environmental justice is about justice. If in fact, if a city has allowed all of its facilities to be located in one of its quadrants, and when we divide the city into squares, quadrants, the just and fair and equitable formula should be that if in fact a new facility is needed, then if all the facilities are in quadrant 1, then quadrant 1 should not be on the list of possibilities. It's not for the environmental justice activists to say where it should go after you have basically said that this community in quadrant A has borne more than its fair share. If you start getting into the position of saying it should go into X, then you have built a barrier that may not be able to bridge this whole development of coalitions and alliances. I point back to the Houston example. The mere fact that African American communities in Houston said no more, I think it allowed many white communities to say, well, if no more there, then what other places are there left? So it forced the issue on the table to say that we must all, since we all produce waste, we must all share the cost. Now, it doesn't undo that historical record, but it does provide some corrective measures in terms of future. That's what I think we have attempted to do in the context of trying to level the playing field when it comes to resource allocation. If in fact lead poisoning is the #1 environmental health problem in this country for children, then that should somehow equate to where resources are allocated. This is not to say that the resources for radon, which is basically a white middle class homeowner program, should be cut. But it does mean that we should point out, in a very clear way, what one program is and what another program is, and talk about resource allocation. It's not just those two examples. But I think when we start to lay the ground that we have to talk about fair, just, and equitable situations, and keep in mind history. Keep in mind history. And in some cases, people don't want to think about the history. The fact that one community has borne greater burden. And then somehow, well, since you got one landfill, putting another one over there won't make that much difference. Some people are thinking like that, and our position is that is the wrong way to think, and the wrong way to build any type of coalition, and the wrong way to even solve a particular problem. Thank you.
Remarks and what the Mississippi River Basin Alliance about is making some of these coalitions and breaking down some of these barriers. And so I think you're a fitting close to our formal meeting here. I did want to remind everybody that we do have subcommittee meetings tomorrow morning, followed at 10:30 by the annual meeting. Those of you who are still around are welcome to join us at the annual meeting tomorrow morning. We'd be pleased to have you. We'd also be pleased to have all your organizations come and join the Mississippi River Basin Alliance. We are open to one and all. If you look at the sheet that says what steps you have to go through, quote unquote, to join, it is inclusive, but we do not want elements that do not embrace our purpose statement and our efforts that we have underway to look at the basin as one people and as one resource. And anybody that doesn't think that way, thank you. We don't care to have you become organizational members. We're in this for the long haul.
Susie, while you're up here, I want to, on behalf of the crew, the staff, and all the for all your hard work.
Thank
I
you.
present you with the
I know you're all kind of getting a little twitchy and sitting all day, but let me just say, I will run through very quickly the winners for the different auction items. For those of you who have been bidding and want to stay and listen to that, what we would encourage you to do is, if you are the winning bid, come up with your checkbook or your pocketbook, or sign your oldest child over to us, and then we'll give you get your stuff. So I'll just run down through the things. Mark Bertram, Mallard print, Belinda West, the Seagull print, Rick LaMonica, the Wolves, Phyllis Smith, the Wild Party Pack. I will the Birchbark Rattle, Jerry Paulson, Joe Campbell, the Geode, and he has to have a tape recording of Bob Williams telling that story. Belinda West, the nature books, the 4 out of print nature books. Joe Campbell, Lower Croy video. Bob Williams, one of the Birchbark Cups. Bob Williams, the second Birchbark Cup. I know why he was up here shilling. He used to find a winner in a lot of these things. And Pat Mann, we got the third Birchbark Cup. Birchbark Vase, Bob Williams. Second Birchbark Vase, Jerry Paulson. Audrey Evans, How to Save a Neighborhood book, the Sierra Club book. Audrey Evans, How to Save a River, the River Networks book. The 1852 Audubon lithograph, Belinda West. The second How to Save a River book, Dinah Maygarden. We're in a pickle. We have 4 people here who've gotten them. Larry Shriver, Amy Middleton, Leroy Soule, and Anna Parks. Okay, Riverkeeper t-shirt from Lean. Thank you, Lean. I guess we had, 2, right? It looks like Dan McGinnis got 1 and Christine Thisted got the other. Now, for our Bryce, we have for the 2-pound bags, the top 3 winners were Mara Wood, Mark Bertram, and Margaret Gilliam and Ted Ilson are going to have to duke it out because they tied for 3rd there. So we'll have to see if we can get those guys to work it out, flip a coin, or somebody hand over the additional coin to put it over the top. 1-pound bag of rice. We had 4 of those, I think. Is that right? Where are all the rice things here together? Except for the rice right? Okay. We'll get back to the 1-pound bags of rice.
The 4 top people.
Okay. Yeah, I know. We're looking for the other sheet, so.
There weren't any names on them.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess it's just that one. Okay. Okay. Photo album. We have one that's gone to Anna Paris. Silver arrowhead necklace went to Mary Lee Orr. The Mandela, which was the wonderful thing with the feathers. Dreamcatcher, Michelle Frome got 1, and Marion Havlick got the other. Okay. Mary Lee Orr also bid on one of the chokers, and she got that. The rice, Lonnie Kemp, Mark Bertram, Pat Munoz, and Daryl Malik Wiley. Oh, here's a speech for introductory remarks. We're not doing that. Daryl Malik Wiley got one of the American Rivers posters over there. Still Morning print, Lonnie Kemp. The coffee print, Pat Mann. And Mid-South Peace and Justice Anniversary poster, Michelle Phelan. Mississippi Spring artwork that Dicey Madsen, one of our exhibitors out here, very kindly contributed. Kathy Andrea. The rubber raft, David Conrad. Hey, he's going to haul that one back to D.C. Canoe trip, Tom Ransberg. And the River Network posters, Maura Wood and Donna Carrier. The Other American Rivers poster, Michelle Phelan. And fly fishing workshops, myself. So.
Welcome and introductions. Welcome, welcome. Have you been having a great conference, guys? Yeah? Feel good about it? Psyched up? Are we proud of ourselves or what? Yeah. We did good. It was wonderful. I know, Susie, you worked so hard. I can't thank you enough. You just were wonderful, and we are very proud of you up there and all the executive committee and all the folks here who helped us. We appreciate it. Let's get started and go around the room for those folks who might not know one another. You're always last, Pat, so we're going to make you first today.
Patrick Mahan with Louisiana Environmental Action Network.
Leroy Soul, Iowa Audubon Council, and on the MRBA I have been for some time, I don't remember how long, a year and a half, the chair of the subcommittee on plans and program.
Larry Smith, Mid-South Peace and Justice Center, also with the Mrba, probably, like Leroy said, a year and a half or so, and structure and nominating committee.
And I might also throw in that Larry and Rita and Hubert and Bill of the Mid-South Peace and Justice did not get proper accolades last night for all their on-the-ground work that they've been doing here for this conference.
Yes.
So.
Thank you.
Lauren Truver, Board of St. Louis Audubon, Rainforest Company, and tour guide on the Amazon River in Peru.
That's where we'll have our next tour.
I'm David Wilkins with River Network.
Joseph Kemmel with the Prairie Island Environmental Protection Committee from Prairie Island, Minnesota.
I'm Dan Ray with the McKnight Foundation for Minneapolis.
My name is Arthur Towers. I'm with the Center for Active Citizenship in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm on the Structure Committee.
I'm Maura Wood with the Baton Rouge Sierra Club and the Sierra Club and Chapalayan Committee.
Bill Redding, Midwest Regional Office Sierra Club.
Evelyn Broker, Executive Director of the American Indian Center, and on the nominating committee.
Bill's modest. We talked about him earlier today. He's the chairman of our entertainment committee.
I am, next time, wherever we meet, I'm gonna get, I'm gonna see if I can get a landing craft. Give you one more ride. It's one of the pylons out here. Once a dumb joyhead, always a dumb.
And I will bring a mop so you can show us how to dock it.
I'm Jonathan Elo, Midwest Office of the Sierra Club.
Amy Middleton, Citizens for Better Environment.
John Lamb, the Minnesota Project, and Communications Committee Chair of the Alliance. Get our two later, right?
I'm Michelle Fromm with the Institute for Conservation Leadership.
Marion Havlick, malacological consultant for across Wisconsin. I study freshwater mussels, especially endangered species.
Susie Wilkins, Mississippi River Basin Alliance.
Darrell Malik Wiley, New Orleans Group Sierra Club, and also on the Communications Committee of the Alliance.
Rick McMonagle, Friends of the Mississippi River in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Rick Lamonica, Sierra Club in Missouri, and Gateway Green Line in St. Louis.
Marvin Mundy with the Rivers Project, and unfortunately Bob Williams. You learning more.
You're not going to give me a title, Bob.
Could you repeat that?
Belinda West with the Pigeon River Douglas Action Committee from Dandridge, Tennessee.
Willie Fonell, Louisiana Environmental Action Network, and the Late Night Research Group.
He's with Bill.
Subcommittee on keeping sure that, yeah.
Run the. our citizens against toxic waste, which is in Deadwood, Kentucky, and Harlan County. And I'm also on the board of Kentucky Resources Council.
I'm Liz Oxenrider from here, Clean Up River Environment, and I'm Video Minnesota.
Jim Johns, Silver Lake, Indiana. I'm the director of the Endangered Species Coalition.
Mark Burkham from the Iowa Wildlife Federation, Eagle View Group, Sierra Club, and I've had the pleasure of working the last few months as one of your paid employees as a wetlands board.
Donna Stern, I'm with the Tennessee Chapter Sierra Club, a volunteer group in Memphis. Michelle Thielen, I'm with Clean Up River Environment on the board of directors in Montevideo, Minnesota.
Florence Robinson, North Baton Rouge Environmental Association, on the lead board, and on the program committee of the Mississippi River Basin Alliance. Okay, wonderful.
Somebody slipped in over here.
Bob Williams.
I don't know if anyone has mentioned the people who aren't here with us. I'm thinking of Michelle, I'm thinking of Diane Russell, who was in this with us from the beginning.
There are chairs.
And as well as Gwen McCutcheon. Gwen.
As well as Gwen McCutcheon, who's been in this from the beginning.
Right.
While we're on the subject of people who have, oh, it's in the other room. Never mind, I'll just forget it.
Here's some information, Connie.
What?
Get
Oh, there's.
Come on in, plenty of room in here. Come sit on my lap.
You gotta watch him, he's been in Memphis too long.
We were just thinking.
Have yourself another role.
I'm not sure who's in.
Their coffee was set up in here. I think that's what the reason was chosen. Look.
Listen, while we have a slight pause here, I would hate to advertise anything, but do you know that Marv and I have been working with high school kids and worked with high school and middle school kids? We have a groundwater training program that we put together that's sponsored by the Kellogg Foundation, and we have a groundwater training curriculum. It's a booklet with a kit. So if any of you are interested in that, you can write us a note or something, and we've got it. It's a draft copy, but it's still there. If you've got schools that want to work on the river with kids going out in the river, then we have a lot of materials and a lot of support, and all they have to do is call me, and we can give them some help. And I've worked with a lot of kids around the country, and we have a lot of schools next to where you are. So if you want to get your high schools and your grades, middle schools involved, then you got to call us, and we'll help.
Can we still get our name on the silent auction?
Listen, it's for $25, I'll put your name on it. Not a problem, you buy silence. Excellent idea. Excellent idea.
For next year already.
Okay, well, folks are moving in, but Arthur, you had something you wanted to share?
People have planes to catch and things like that, so I just.
Okay, yeah, Susie's folks sit down, we're ready. Susie?
Yes.
Okay, the folks who are coming in, can you introduce yourselves real quickly so we can share who you are, and then we're gonna move on to Susie's report. Walter, I hate to put you on the spot.
Walter Wright, North Baton Rouge Environmental Association.
Mr. Stewart, North Baton Rouge Association.
Alice Cage, North Baton Rouge Environmental.
Rolinda Doris, the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice.
Oh, a new introduction is Connie Tappan with the Southern Organizing Committee.
Rita Harris, Mid-South Peace and Justice Center here in Memphis.
Anybody else, Deborah? Oh, Phyllis, Miss Phyllis.
Phyllis Smith. Concerned Civil Agriculture Street landfill based in New Orleans under the Deep South Center. Sorry.
Melissa Samet, Sierra Club Legal Defense Fund at San Francisco.
Welcome, John?
John Mrba, Southern Organizing Committee, Atlanta.
John. Have we got, is that everybody?
No, there's still more folks in the hall.
Well-
Randy, get in
Come
here.
on.
You wanna move to the Memphis room,
Thank you.
Susie?
No.
This is real together. Go ahead, Mary Lee.
Okay, Dan, is everybody in? You wanna introduce yourself?
I'm Dan Nicolai
Okay.
from Louisiana.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Susie, you wanna go ahead and give us your
Sure,
report, please?
one of the handout materials over there, and I don't know if everybody's gotten a kind of a packet of stuff, but it's just a page and a half annual report for 1994. Our fiscal year, and our operational year is 1994. And, so this, report covers that span of activities. During that time, the Alliance, had a couple of meetings, in March, and then in October. We secured our 501c3 status. We hired, your first, staff coordinator. We set up the office in Memphis, and we began to, excuse me, when I say Memphis, I've got Memphis on the brain here, St. Louis. And, we began some of our work to facilitate the dream that was started in early 1992 by folks coming together, many of whom are in this room, and without whose participation that would not be possible. I would just like to say that I am indebted to each and every one of you for all that you have done in your own communities and giving of yourselves above and beyond the call of duty to take that little bit of extra time above and beyond each and every day activities that you have to do on behalf of your own issues and organizations. It's that vision that allows each of us to make the Basin Alliance successful. If we didn't take that little bit of extra time, we would just get focused in on our own community, our own activities, and the concept of the Basin Alliance would not succeed. So please note that I'm in great debt to each and every one of you. In particular, I'd like to thank our executive committee and our two subcommittee chairs, Mary Lee, Evelyn Delane, who wasn't here this weekend, as Dr. Bullard mentioned last evening. They've got their big conference, I think it's next weekend?
Right.
And I'm sure Delane's, busy working on that to get ready for that. Larry Smith, Willie Fontenot, Leroy Soul, John Lamb have been our folks that have continued to help get us to where we are today. In addition, many of the subcommittees worked very hard. I don't know how many subcommittee conference calls the program and policy subcommittee had, and as well as the nominating and structure committee, to get us ready for this meeting. So thanks to Leroy and his committee for pulling together the policy papers that we will be looking at in a few minutes, and also to Larry and his subcommittee for the bylaw revisions, as well as the slate that will be presented later today. Before I turn the floor to the rest of the committee, to the agenda, I wanted to see if there were any questions that anybody had on the annual report. Connie?
I'd just like to point out that Delane Garner came to the Alliance representing the Southern Organizing Committee. And in the future, when we have people here, they're not here as individuals, but representing the Southern Organizing Committee. So therefore, if there's a transfer anywhere in there, it is this, that position should be refilled with someone from the Southern Organizing Committee.
Okay, I think that's a good point, Connie. I think that the nominating structure subcommittee should take that into consideration as we're continuing to work on it. I appreciate very much that thought. Did anybody else have any other questions or comments on the short annual report here? We've got more detailed information, of course, available, but I just want to give you all a summary of that. We had our accolades last evening for Bill Redding and Gwen McCutcheon, who's not with us, and Mary Lee for some of their wonderful guidance and leadership to get us where we are today. There's one of us who's not here today, and I wanted to just take a moment to have special remembrances of Cindy Bidlack. one of our stalwart founders who died earlier this year after suffering cancer for about 9 months. And we've got a little plaque for her and Bob. I wondered if you could come and maybe take that on behalf of the Rivers Project in Illinois. And with our condolences and special acknowledgement of Cindy's support and effort in the early days of the Alliance. And let me get it unwrapped here. So there's for Cindy.
She's here through us. So we had a cheer for her last night. I miss her a lot, so.
She kept you in line.
She did.
You too. Okay, that's all I had, unless anybody else had any other questions of me in particular at this point. Thank you.
Okay, Susie. Mark, you ready to share your wetlands report for us, please?
Since middle of January, I've been working on developing action, trying to develop action in the river basin on specific wetland policy issues and related issues such as the navigation problem in the upper Midwest and floodplain policy coming out of the 1993 floods. Within my role, what I've tried to do is because we're spread so thin and we have it's a limited grant that we have, that somewhat limits our time on this. So I've tried to combine working on the major policy issues, particularly with our new Congress, and coordinate many of you in this room and other groups in responding to what Congress is trying to do that affects wetlands and floodplain policy. I've also tried to, in my travels around, participate with local groups on their problems relating to wetlands and urge their membership in the MRBA and their activities within MRBA, and I think that's important. Any of the specific grant programs we get like this and bring people on board, I think it's important for those employees or staff people to always keep that in mind, because it helps expand our vibrance as a group. I've attended a number of meetings with federal and state agency people, and the sad thing is that at most of those meetings, I'm the only one from the nonprofit group. And I think that's something for us to always try and keep in mind, even if we don't have funded monies to get people to these meetings where a lot of policy, bureaucratic policy, is developed in the field, whether it's in Columbia, Missouri, or New Orleans, or Vicksburg, or wherever. We need to get people there to represent the environmental viewpoint, the citizen viewpoint, because our viewpoint is different than the biologists and the engineers, and it's not being represented, and we need to try and keep funds available, at least travel money available, to get some of you to those meetings. I did attend the National Wildlife Federation Conference in Washington, D.C. here in March, and I'm working with their regional offices and their state affiliates to try and organize them on Mississippi River issues and get their participation in the MRBA. David Conrad from NWF National Office was here through last night, and he has been assisting us on several issues, both in the upper river and lower river. Obviously, we did not get NWF affiliates here, so that effort hasn't totally succeeded yet, but I think we're making a start, and that's another large constituency to bring in. Right now, I did put a sheet up over on the table there, if you're from the lower river. Right now, I'm helping a couple of Sierra Club state chapters and NWF affiliates, and hopefully some other organizations, to organize, and we're working with Sierra Club Legal Defense Fund, organize and try to have some impact on the raising of the lower main stem levees. It's a project that's been in operation for 20 years, and we're just now getting in on the act because the Corps has been keeping it pretty quiet and not even involving the other federal agencies. So that's a major issue that we're playing the key role in bringing enough parties together to have some effective action on. Also, I'm working with Jonathan Mrba and a few others. We've been very active in the Galloway report, which is a response to the 93 floods, and very active with the proposed expansion expansion of the navigation system on the upper Mississippi River and trying to influence how those policies and studies are developing. So we've exhausted some of our monies now, but it looks like I'll be on board a little bit while as an employee. But I know we are seeking more monies, not only in the wetlands area, but also I think in the farm program and some others trying to get some grant money in to fund some other activists to keep people on the road and working on these issues. And it's been fun, and hopefully we've made some minimal impact on some of these actions. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, regional reports from our meeting yesterday afternoon. The Upper Basin. Amy?
Yeah, yeah. Figure this out. Well, maybe I don't. So just we had a great time in our group, actually. We had a good drawer, so.
I stand in front of you there.
We looked at this is the upper list. And I sort of clumped them. We have a few pages of things that I can leave with you guys, but I clumped them into sort of three areas. The issue areas that we identified, the same old ones, sedimentation, non-point source, navigation, industrial. Community resources. We spent some time talking about how folks at the grassroots, us, need resources to be able to do the work that a sort of large umbrella project would take, and it's pass through dollars to the folks that we're doing the work at the local level. So it's trying to figure out ways of leveraging those kind of financial, technical, and pass through dollars to be able to allow us to come to the wetland meetings and testify and do some of those things. So I know in my grassroots organizing, I try and get people to come to meetings, and if I don't have travel money for them or some way of getting them there, they're not going to come. So I think that's a really big issue for all of us to try and figure out. And then the last section that we clumped up was communication. We had some agency folks in there and trying to tie in between federal, state, local. Watershed districts, we talked about some of the water plans that are going on at the county level and at the watershed district level in Minnesota that folks are using there as a leverage point for doing some planning around. John Lamb's Minnesota project has a directory and is coming out with a new directory. Is that just for Minnesota?
Just for North Quad City.
Oh, it is for the whole quad. So that's great. And that directory is coming out in about 2 months, and it'll have resources. And it's a very good directory to be able to flip through and say, I need blah, blah, blah. And here it is on page 13. So be in touch with John if you're interested with that. I can't read my writing down there. What does that say?
Communications,
Oh, and then one agency person was talking about how agencies need to have a big picture, long-range plan, and that's our role as community people and as environmental activists to help them define that vision and define that big picture. So those are the rough 3 areas that we covered. Questions? John, did you want to add anything, or Marion, or anybody?
No, does anybody else want to?
Whoever was there. Okay,
Thank you,
thanks.
Amy. Thank you very much. Okay. The middle? Is that you, Larry? The middle?
Yeah, just turn it off and just keep that and put that somewhere else.
The middle? Larry?
Well, no, I was out running a copy, so literally, was that, you did, was the middle of you.
Good morning, good morning.
All
All right.
Swap place.
Oh, that's so quiet.
Waiting for you, Alberta.
No.
No, we just switched.
Okay, Leroy?
I chaired or facilitated the Middle River group, and one of the things I had in the back of my mind is that the staff in the office of MRBA consists of one person. And the rest of us are so scattered out that we should deal with this in such a way that we can do something, but not take off such a big bite. Take it in small bites instead of grabbing a whole hind quarter and trying to wrestle it. Our issue number 1 was toxics, and we subdivided that into industrial, agricultural, and then I added on my own because of something that I'm aware of. In agricultural use of chemicals, there's an economic factor. The farmer doesn't want to put more money into the ground than he can take out of it. It's lawns and golf courses where people with money can be extravagant with chemicals, so we have to include them. And waste sites. I'm in the way here, I can tell. And the other issue that was brought up by Rita Harris from here in Memphis is hot fish. We have fish advisories out on many of our rivers now. Do not eat the fish, or do not eat more than one salmon a month, or something like that, because they're contaminated with toxins. And the third issue that we came back to is navigation. Now, we already have an issue paper in here, but it doesn't hurt to repeat that navigation is an issue. I'm not going to explain that right now because we'll be getting into the issue paper later on. Issue 1. We had a representative there who had a hot issue, and that's Choto Island waste site. Choto Island is, I think, a cutoff, huh? Choto, that's what I was saying, I thought. Choto? Okay, if we want to nitpick about that.
Just continue on. You can tell us where it is.
It's near the chain of rocks, which, if though you're familiar, it's north of St. Louis, and it's near a number of minority communities on the Illinois side. It's a waste dump that is managed, I guess, by Waste Management Incorporated. And they're putting goodies in there, we don't know all of them, but asbestos, lead, and dioxin. The local group called Spill, I don't think I've got down there, has been fighting this battle on their own. But we decided that maybe this is one we could take on. The consequences of that, having that spill, it's essentially in the middle of the Mississippi River. The old Mississippi Channel goes on one side and the navigation channel goes on the other. There's direct leakage from any dump like this into the water, so it's going to go into the water supply. We want to involve as many people as possible, and we want the politicians from the state of Missouri and the city of St. Louis. So instead of saying all of them, I just said contaminates the water supply for St. Louis.
The intake for East St. Louis and Belleville is just downstream from this, and the thing was completely underwater during the last flood. And it now leaks toxic leachates into the water, and we have pictures of that. And politically, there's something going on because this has been allowed to expand, and now they're bypassing laws as they do and going ahead and expanding the dump, and they've done nothing in regulation to stop it. And somehow the state of Illinois is tied into this thing politically. I'm not sure. Governor Edgar signed off on the allowance to, and it's everybody that's below St. Louis is having free chemicals from it. And the possibility the next flood to have more free chemicals. So it's sort of like Joe and his Prairie Island thing. If the system screws up and Mama Nature takes her course, we all are going to suffer from it.
Okay, thanks,
So it's
Bob. Go ahead, Leroy.
It's a prime example of what Dr. Bullard was talking about, where they've cited a dump where it impacts minorities the most, because 3 of the Illinois communities right around there are major areas of black mainly. Is there Indian in there too?
Okay, and if people want to know more, Leroy, they'll see you, since we've got other folks who've got to do it. If you
Yeah,
want to just
right.
move on.
And then the water project. We have got a strategy. We had 2 federal EPA members in there. Illinois has the EPA lead in that state. We're going to write a letter to the Illinois EPA requesting an inventory of toxics. I'm going into this in detail because some of you others may have the same problem, may need to know how to go. We will copy the governor, and we will copy the regional office of U.S. EPA in Chicago, so that they know that we're attacked. The U.S. EPA probably will not do it for political reasons, Republican administration in both areas, but they could take the lead away from Illinois EPA over something like this. And quickly, well, I didn't get that down. The other issue is hot fish. The problem we've got is that the people that are fishing on the river are generally doing it because that's a main source of supply of protein for their families. They can't afford to go out and buy steaks. And you see this all up and down the Mississippi River. I'm sure at the lower end as well as here. Yeah. It doesn't help to tell them that, hey, you're endangering your health by eating these fish. But some of the things we can do are cosmetic in the beginning, but maybe would lead to something. What we want to do is work, and we had a Missouri Department of Conservation man there suggest that standardized fish warnings, fish advisories would be useful. Every state has a different form. And you say that's just cosmetic. But what we do when we're developing that form in all these states in the discussion, we're alerting everybody to the fact we got a problem and we can maybe get publicity for it. And that's all I'm going to say on that. You can get back to me with other questions. These are two things we can do either ourselves or the letter writing Susie can take care of as one staff.
Okay, thank you. Melinda, you ready with the lower?
Yes, just in time.
Move this forward or back or what?
Wait, you could, actually, did he have some tape in here?
There's some back in the room I came from.
That would be Vanna White. Sorry, Melinda.
There you go.
A little comfy. Will I present to you the lower Mississippi River area and the major issues that we have here?
Colorful.
That's right. We're very colorful in the lower Mississippi. Very. And some of the major issues that we highlighted were environmental justice and racism, economic development, ecosystem health, human health and safety, and endangered species. They're all in circles and they're all connected because they all go together. They're all interconnected in some way, shape, or form. And to just tell you a little bit about each of these. Okay, environmental justice and racism is A, the development of an organized grassroots base for quick response and ongoing response and strategy for impacting state and federal public policy and industry. Provide the financial resources to build this infrastructure. This infrastructure will work to eliminate all vestiges of environmental injustice and racism, including 1, the public education, 2, development of political awareness, 3, appropriate political action, 4, appropriate networks, such as the Gulf of Mexico networks and etc. Ecosystem health and public safety through pollution prevention is A, this would include point and non-point source pollution, pesticides and herbicides, chlorine-related toxics generation, contamination of soil and sediments, and pollution problems associated with navigation, such as dredging and spills. Another part of this would be work and community health safety issues, and also habitat preservation, including sediment management and wetland preservation. Also protection of endangered species, including humans. That's one endangered species we need to protect. And also networking with groups addressing Gulf of Mexico issues, such as issues relating to the dead zone. And the last, to further explain economic development, establishment of sustained forms of economic development must include 1, education and training of community people to increase employability, 2, retraining of workers for new jobs created when their existing jobs are phased out, and 3, the formation of alliances with labor.
Somebody lost a cat.
Little bitty one?
I think it's
Yeah, no, that's
No,
not
no,
it.
no, it's not. Sorry. You have it? No, we've lost ours too.
I knew you were.
Okay, any questions about the lower? That was fantastic, Rolinda, that artwork was great. Thank you very much for making us look so wonderful. That's great. Okay, any questions about any of those, guys, ladies? Okay, our subcommittee reports, our communication chair, John Lamb, would you like to report back about our meeting?
How much time do we have?
Not much. Not much.
Well, we updated one another on the past year's activities of the committee. There are several things that the Communication Committee has been talking about doing for the last 2 years, and we're moving ahead with them. One was to get a newsletter going, and that's out. You've seen newsletters a few times now. One is to develop a directory for the Alliance, and we're working on the computer formatting for that. I'm not sure exactly how far that is, but we're ready to go. We're ready to go on that. That's the next thing we work on. And we're also exploring ways to get computer skills and capacity into the member groups and also our friends along the river. And we would appreciate any feedback with ideas about where we might look for some of those computers. You can get with some of the communication committee people for that. And we also worked last year to pull the trainings together with the Institute for Conservation Leadership and the program committee for the annual meeting. And we felt pretty good about how the trainings went on Thursday. Or was that Friday? I don't know anymore. And we thought that the Communication Committee will work a little harder next year to assist with publicity and press and media and all that for the annual meeting. We thought that it was great that we got some coverage, we got some articles. That led into a little bit of a discussion about the basin needing to serve as some sort of a clearinghouse for media coverage. And so we'll have a later discussion about just how that might work so it's not a bogged down system of clearinghouse for media. We talked about having some training pages in the newsletter, maybe some resource lists. The Institute for Conservation Leadership will help us with that so that we start telling maybe a computer corner or something, or maybe a training opportunities corner that we'll have in future issues of the newsletter. We also talked a little bit about a membership packet, a recruitment packet that has more things in it about what the Alliance means to you, what the Alliance can do for you, going into a little more detail about the new computer networking system, availability of computers, availability of training opportunities that our groups can provide to each other, perhaps some discussions about peer matching possibilities, that sort of thing. Let's see. I might, you should stop me if you don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm talking like I'm talking to the committee, so, and we know this language. So. We thought about localizing some of the trainings. I mean, it seemed to work real well to have, let's see, who are the folks who are here doing the computer training?
John from OMB.
From OMB Watch, RTKNet, had done some wonderful computer training sessions in the South. Florence, I understand, is a computer whiz now, and carts this thing off and impresses everyone everywhere she goes. And that was very successful, and we need to duplicate that in other regions of the river. Make sure that once we've built this sophisticated electronic mail network and electronically based directories and listservs and all this stuff, that we figure out how to use them so we can get some training to people up and down the river. Where am I? Equipment services. Oh, and we also talked about, some of us have had conversations with Michael Goldberg, who was here from up north, and he works for the sort of alternative nonprofit radio networks, and would like to see a radio link, a radio news bureau up and down the river, where he can start linking us to the good reporters, and we can start getting some help from them writing good stories and feeding each other information up and down the river in a sophisticated broadcast media world. And we think that we should pursue that relationship, for sure. See, I think, is that about it? Okay, that's about it. And then for any of you who would like to participate in communication committee activities, we've scheduled a telephone conference call for the Communications Committee for June the 28th at 2 p.m. Central. And let me know if you want to get involved in the Communications Committee.
Thanks, Jim.
Is that enough?
Thanks for putting a good job for us. Thanks. Okay, Larry, you have the Structure Nominating Committee report?
Yeah. All right, Arthur, what else?
You want me to pass it out? Will you help?
Yeah, I need help.
Okay.
First we're gonna do is, we had some bylaw changes, so, got 75 of these, so some, please, everybody just share if you would. Congressional legislation. The bold print is the new changes. The bold print, big print is, let's see. We may have it.
May we have some over here, please?
Well, this way, coming at you.
I got bored. Read it? I don't have one.
All right, looks like we're done.
Everybody have one?
We got, anybody?
It should be two separate documents, one single page, the other, table.
There's an extra.
Okay? Okay?
You have one.
We need to share.
Plenty of anything else.
No, just those two things.
Anybody else?
Oh, cool. Well, I'm just saying, so that, but it's really easy. And then you get all this information about your stuff.
Thank you.
We need to take a few minutes, and we need to vote on these changes. We'll go over them real quick with you here. The large print is, large bold print is the new changing, the additions to the bylaws. One of the most important ones was over in section 2. It's over in the second or third page actually. Article 5. Article 5, section 2. We wanted to ensure regional representation on this board. It's the second physical page. I'd been in a couple other coalitions and so forth, and it's real easy to get cliquish. You just get lazy and just get with who you know, and so we wanted some way to mandate upper, middle, and lower would always be on this board, and the diversity would always be mandate an issue. And if you don't, and just from my experience, if you don't mandate that, you just go with who you know. If the board position comes open, it's just who you know, come on, get on the board. So unless it's in there, that's the major, that is the major change. Right up at the beginning, right on the, flip over the first page, the only other major change in here was in the way we set this up. There was some concern early on when we were doing these beginning meetings about industry folks taking over the alliance and how you're gonna judge that, how you're gonna control that. So, I have to hold my voice hold up. So that's where this wording came. That was the idea. So we don't want to be exclusionary. We may have some really nice for-profit businesses that are really cool, really sincere and whatever, but we wanted to control that. So that was where the 3-member nominating requirement, which is not that big a deal because we all know each other. So if somebody, we want somebody on, you just get 3 folks to sponsor them in. But also, we thought even if for-profit companies were the greatest for-profit companies in the world came to the alliance, would we want them governing the board? So that's why the voting rights would always be held with non-governmental, not-for-profit organizational members.
Let me just interject there. We have a situation right now where we will have a person that's being nominated for our upcoming board who in fact works for a for-profit company who's in this room, and he is one of us. And that's okay, because he can serve as an individual. But as Larry just pointed out, we want to make sure that it's not taken over by some entity that does not conform, as I was saying last evening, with our principles and our purpose statement.
Right. And you may think it's tempest in a teapot, but listen, industry watches us. They take us very seriously. We are from all over this river basin, and this is unprecedented in our networking and our communication, who we are, the people in this room, and the fact that we're communicating and talking. So it's not beyond belief that you would have a Shell or Exxon or somebody strategize and say, how can we get in here and have some influence? Because we've all been in meetings where you have 1 or 2 consistent people that mess up everything, and it just don't take that much.
Right.
So
what you mean by 1 or 2 people messing up?
6, 8, 10. Well, that's a wonderful thing about this group. We're all just a wonderful group, and we just argue, but we're moving. But the difference between us and someone else, we're all moving in the same direction.
Okay.
We're all moving same general, but it's one mountain, many paths, and we're all headed that way. So, anyway.
Anybody have any comments about these changes, Mark?
Larry, under Article 5 on page 3, with your changes, for proposed changes, you got 60% proposed to local state, and you got 20% will be composed of representatives for each of the basin's 3 regions, and then you say 20% from the upper, 20% from the middle, and 20% will be made up of individual members. We forgot the lower.
Yeah, what happened to that?
Oh, it's a coup. My God, we've been found out. All right. What a guy.
You're not even from the lower basin.
It's a plot. I'm actually Shell Oil. Well, it lowers. It's got to be in there. I've looked at this a zillion times.
It
But
should say, what, 80%?
it's 2468 with the 20% left over for individuals. So it's 20, 20, 20.
So the 20% must be held by individuals?
Well, and or could be made up of, it's kind of just, or whatever.
What was the point of bringing individuals to the, what was the point?
Just to fill in, like, just 2468
We thought
splits
like
better.
if I may interject something, we have situations that present themselves that you may have an individual who's very good, worked for a not-for-profit organization, leads that organization, and still we would want that person into the alliance. We may or we may not want them in the alliance. So it should be an opportunity. It may never be acted on, but the opportunity for someone good who doesn't necessarily belong to an organization but did come in an organization, that they can continue to participate.
Also, the 2468 is not, that's not, in there. If we could make up the rest of those percentages to the 100% of the board, it'd be all from the lower or whatever, but the main point was just a mandated minimum from each area. I mean, that could go with the individual could be.
So how would it read now?
Well, just put lower in there.
Okay, but if you change the percentage, go to 60, it goes to 80.
Yeah.
No.
Two separate. It's still 60, 246.
Oh, okay, so it's 60%. The 60 is just
local and state level grassroots.
And they can overlap, I mean, they will overlap, but the people will be, but,
So what kind of how specific are you on that language?
we'll just put middle in there, I mean, put lower in there.
Okay, you're gonna start a separate sentence that says 20% of the board will be made up of individuals.
Larry, it should read at least 60% of the board will be
Uh,
At a minimum.
I would like to point out that I don't think that, I think that middle, 20% of the board will be made up of individual members shouldn't total in with the other numbers.
Well,
Because there'll be individual members in each of those other 3 areas.
I don't know if now's the time to say it, but I really think that people on the board ought to represent organizations, and individuals who want to work with the basin can work with the basin, but just not at the board level. It seems to me that 20% ought to be for youth, that other 20%, if you want to guarantee youth participation.
Well, what it's saying though is this 20% of the 100% should be open to individual.
I understand exactly, I understand exactly, and what I'm proposing is that it seems to me at the board level that what you would want represented there are people who have organizational bases. I mean, that's the point of building a network, is to bring people to the table who have a reach, you know, and that reach comes through organizational connection, and also that individual is also accountable